test that. All right, stand by. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, the rebuilding edition. We're still kind of in a process of getting this all working. So we're taking on a new way. If you didn't see yesterday, we're taking on kind of a new approach where we're streaming to YouTube directly. So we're screen scraping and then streaming the first hour and then moving into a more produced environment for the second hour. And so this will be, it seems like a lot of people want to see this because everyone keeps on showing up. So this is a process. We think if you're watching this, we think that we're in the process of building something new, something that's a different kind of broadcast. But the first steps are a little rough. So we're kind of sorting through that, getting all the pieces ready to go. But it is, it's coming together, and so we'll be doing more of that today. We're going to have to end a little early today, so we're going to have a kind of a shorter Q&A as we go through it, and then we're going to go into second hour testing for how we're structuring this, and we'll probably end about 8:15 because we have a conflict with the hardware. So there's no 9.0 event that needs the rest of the machine at 9 o'clock. So anyway, but we're going to basically build this up. We're going to go ahead and the producers have done a great job. We're going to lock the questions because we have enough for the time frame that we have for our panelists. Just know that we need to answer fairly concisely. And then we'll still dig into it there. So let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Guy, what do we have?
First one's coming in from Juan C. Robles in Mexico, and looks like NDI5 was announced. So he's asking any thoughts.
So a couple of folks here had some hints of what might happen. Go ahead, Jonas.
So NDI5 seems like a really cool thing. They published multiple things. I have an overview of those. It's NDI Audio Connect, which will help figuring out audio in the cloud. Basically,
this has been one of the big issues, with audio.
Yeah, that's the VST plugin that I think that's the VST plugin that Jeff talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Then reliable UDP. I think it's just a go back N protocol similar to SRT that they use for their NDI bridge. Then, of course, Apple support is something that you will probably like. Yeah. They now have a plugin for Final Cut Pro. Then three new applications, NDI Bridge, the Audio Connect, and Remote. Remote, I haven't seen it yet, but it looks like it's a remote contribution solution. And then it now has, which is pretty cool, you can create private networks, and you can also select to which network adapter NDI is going out, which is an amazing feature. And then something that we really like for the cloud is redundant discovery service. So now we can have two discovery servers. So if one goes down, we can have a second. Then BirdDog released their Play, which is $150 device that can play NDI with two frames delay, which seems to be quite nice to implement it in like for monitors or for even an ATEM Mini. And then they also added Cloud Connect from BirdDog, which seems to get the NDI bridge that NewTek announced to multiple devices like an iPhone, tablet, TVs for monitoring and multi-views.
It's quite a release. They turned all the switches on.
It's really cool. It's not yet available. It's just announced it will get available in June.
Great. George?
So obviously, everyone has been buzzing about the contribution part of it, which we're going to a lot with that right now, trying to figure things out on different ends. What's interesting to me is that Blackmagic is missing from that whole post-production side. I know, Alex, there was some chatter about it yesterday on Twitter of whether Blackmagic would even go that route. So it's interesting it's not there.
Oh, I don't think Blackmagic's going to do anything with NDI, ever. I don't think that'll happen. I think the Blackmagic is much more likely to go to 2110 than before they go to NDI. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
It's funny that yesterday we talked about how can we remote via NDI into here, and now they just gave us an answer. The one thing about the remote is a little concerned about how security might be. This will be perfect for a remote kit if I'm just doing a recording. But if something is higher need for security, I'd love to see how that works. And then I'm guessing, to answer George's question, I wouldn't be surprised if there would be some hardware solution that would then kind of like a stream bridge that the NDI could use to bring it into like an ATEM or anything like that.
Yeah, go ahead, Jonas.
That hardware is the BirdDog Play, the $150 device, because it can use BirdDog Bridge. And if you want NDI output from DaVinci Resolve, you can, from the creators of the Nope Omniscope plugins, they have a Nope display that now supports NDI output. So you can output your grading sessions directly out of Resolve and then use NDI 5 with that. So
That's
it's
great.
all there now.
It's perfect. Yeah, I think that this is a huge upgrade. So it'll be interesting to see. For remote contribution, the thing I'll be interested in is latency. So that's the, like how long does it actually take per leg? The Skype, has been the best that we've seen so far with new tech, and that's been 330 milliseconds, which for us would be too long. So, we, I think that my guess is when they say reliable UDP, I think 0.5, 500 milliseconds to 1,000 milliseconds is where they're at. But we'll see. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida. As we contemplate office reopenings, I am spec'ing out small presentation spaces for single presenters on Zoom, live streaming, etc. I've built news studios while at Fox, but for corporate offices, ease of use, self-service is key to success. Any suggestions from the group?
Go ahead, John.
It started at universities, but Penn State, but it's called the One Button Studio. And the DVE store has a wonderful implementation of that. And basically you could walk into a room, push one button and do a recording. And now they've added a feature of One Button Zoom Studio. Guy may have more details.
Yeah, we've been working on this for like 2.5 years. It's something that it originated at Penn State, and people kept asking us, like, they wanted to buy, there's 20 different pieces to put this thing together, but teachers don't like issuing 20 POs. They just want one thing. So we built one of these in our studio, and then we're like, what can we do to make it better? And I was like, scope creep, don't turn it into the 20 button studio, which it kind of has, but there's still only one button to walk into and push to start recording. But basically that's it. It's lights, camera, audio, all in one solution. You just walk in and you can hit a button. It's meant really for students. They put in a USB stick, it turns everything on. They step on one button to start recording, and then they walk, when they press stop, it writes it to the USB stick, and they can walk out and take it to edit. Usually these are in like libraries where there's some iMacs or something set up as well for the students to edit. So it's been a cool solution. We're seeing it start to get some lift in a lot of the universities. It's in all the major universities. If you go on YouTube, you can see some implementations.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and I think the proof is in the pudding. Faculty have been able to assign students a requirement to produce a video that they'd use in class. They don't have to use class time to teach them how to use it. So literally there have been thousands of students since 2004 when a big article appeared in the EDUCAUSE magazine called 7 Things About the One Button Studio. So it's a proven, very simple thing to use for recording, and hopefully they'll make it so simple that even people could access it for Zoom calls. And it's an equity thing. It gives people a really nice studio where they may not have one with their home setups.
We've built a bunch of studios for a couple large companies, and most of these have been focused on interaction. So we're less. I will admit that my thing will be probably less about recording and more about how do you interact with folks. So, for instance, we've talked a lot about that. I think this is important. While you're talking to people, being able to just design those things and make them work. Typically, this kind of studios that we've built, you got to be able to show a computer, have a close-up camera that you can show an object and a person. So those are 3 cameras. So it's a little bit more complicated there. Being able to have a telestrator usually means you have an iMac, somewhere involved. In fact, sometimes we have 2. One that runs kind of the connection to YouTube, and then one that runs the telestrator is really, and the telestrator is just a black over white that's keyed over. It's like it's and then an ATEM switcher in between. Now, I keep my ATEM switcher at arm's length, but for the most of the studios, what we've done is machined specific controls. So there's big pictures of what you need to do, and then we use, in the past, we've used the Scarhoy controllers to be able to go back into those, and so you can tie that in so that you just have a nice interface for them to sit there and tap what they want to show. They don't have to think about that. Once you start doing that, you are going to need a couple more monitors for them to see what's going on, what's in preview, what's going on, what's coming up. And so at this point, I would probably put in the past, we put in smaller machines, but at this point, I'd probably put in an ISO Extreme, to be able to record all of those as needed, but also be able to have 8 inputs that you're able to do it. And the super source is pretty useful when you want to start to do it. Now, this is not as easy as what the studio that John and Guy were talking about is. I tend to want to invest in wetware. So I just want to train people to do it. So I'd rather than making the system simple, I'd rather make people better at it, because I feel like they're going to have more scale, to make that happen. So having some playback solutions as well. I mean, whether it's a playout B or whether it's a hyperdeck, depends on what your budget is, as you're building these things up. But being able to tap on something and have it actually play out some video that you want to show, those are all things that are super useful, when it comes to being able to build these pieces. And so when I'm doing classes, and I've taught classes in Africa for my office, and that's where my whole system got kind of built up, was me trying to teach these classes and being frustrated that I couldn't do this or I couldn't do that. And every time I got frustrated, it meant that I bought another piece of hardware. So it used to be much more complicated. I would say that my old system was about $250,000 of hardware. It's now down to about 10 grand worth of hardware. And that's what we're looking at implementing for some of the programs that we're doing, giving all the teachers a pretty beefed up system that allows them to do it. The system that I'm doing, that I create, is basically giving you a transparency system like you'd have with the old overheads, except everything's multimedia underneath it. So that it does take a little bit of learning to do, but and so if you want something that day one they can go in and create content, I think the one button studio is the right solution. If you want something where there's a lot of interaction, there's gonna be some flexibility, that you have to be able to show a lot of different things, and then I think that you end up building a studio that's a little bit more complicated. So anyway, and then almost everything that we build is IP controlled. Everything's IP controlled, so that you can have someone remote. You can have 10 of these studios and someone at central control just being able to look at all the studios, reach in and fix things, pull back out again. And that allows you to provide a lot of support and even cut the show for someone if they need it. So it's something to think about. Next question.
Yeah, actually, Jeffrey, are the guys from Remotely Possible doing that as well, where you can control the 6K and that thing, the guys you interviewed? Because I think that's what you pay for with that $5,000 rental fee a day, is the fact that they'll do that for you. They'll take over the remote box. Was that the name of the company? Or am I confusing?
They had a proprietary software that they could do remote into, but you can do it also using something like TeamViewer or anything like that. And that's what I was thinking of doing with my kits if I decide to implement NDI into the system.
And if I build studios in a campus, I would just use the LAN. Or a VLAN if it was an extended campus. I mean, if for something you're sending out to an individual person, having something remote makes sense. For something that you're building as an install, I would just have it something that I have direct IP access to. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Chris Fenwick, and he asks, NDI 5.0 remote, can we please discuss this?
Already did it. We discussed it. So what we'd like to do, I think we'll see if Jeff can maybe organize it, or someone. We'd love to bring NewTek in as early as next week to talk about it, next Wednesday. It's an open invitation. So if someone knows someone at NewTek, we'd love to have them in and talk about it. It's a big upgrade. We'd love to dig into it deeper. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Howard Grigg in New Zealand. Has anyone got experience with fiber optic HDMI cables, looking at using a 50-meter cable in our church? Concerned about durability as well. We will need to set up in a hall each week, thinking about putting it on a reel.
Our experience with them is they work really well. They're usually one direction, is most of the ones that we have. I really get concerned about them getting broken. You're spending an enormous amount of money on a long cable, whereas I'd rather spend the money on 2 converters from, to HDMI to fiber, and then if the cable gets cut, it's cheap cable in between. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, when you get to the camera tripod head, when you get to camera tripod head, put a barrel connector and then run a short cable up to the camera just to protect that end. You do want to be, they are somewhat, you want to be careful with them on the ends, especially.
Yeah. So, I mean, at 50 meters, I would probably convert them to SDI, probably not even fiber, and then just run them. and get in and out of that. The boxes on either end are relatively inexpensive, and so is the SDI. So, and probably end up saving you some money. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Todd Irving in Tom R in Irving, Texas. I need a refresher. What's the best technique for presenting video within Zoom? Shared screen, shared desktop, separate camera input with a switcher, or some other trick? Thanks.
Go ahead, Hasmukh.
I tend to use a HDMI input rather than directly from Zoom instead of screen sharing, and then use a computer or an iPad or even an Apple TV to play the video out.
Yeah, I like having the option of how it's going to go out and how it's going to go into the switcher. One of the challenges is that when you start doing screen shares, it can change the format of your record, and it also takes over everybody's screen, and so it's not as contextual. I think there's advantages to that to some degree, but I try to avoid it. Next question.
Charles Silverman in Ridgefield, Connecticut. How do I stop all pop-up overlays when scraping a pinned participant in a Zoom room?
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
So for a Mac, you can turn on Do Not Disturb and have it on as always. That's one thing if the pop-ups are outside of Zoom.
I think Apple, they require you to have it open at some point. So mine opens up at 9:59 and closes at 10 o'clock at night. And if my computer happens to be awake when it does that, it's just a long string of, oh my gosh, I had to tell you all these things. And then it goes away. But yeah, go, Jonas.
I started putting vMix on my Zoom contribution machines and just a window capturing. So that way I don't get any pop-ups, even if Zoom wants to pop up something, it's not there.
Yeah. Make sure to also pop your chat out and put it on some other screen. So there's it's a little frustrating that we can't just get rid of chat. You want people to be able to have it, but get rid of it out of the display, so that it's still there and people can still use it or whatever. There's the functionality of that is a little frustrating. Next question.
Greg Gibson in Washington, D.C. asks, I know this question is like fingernails on a chalkboard to the audio guys, but I need a small, inexpensive analog audio mixer that can be obtained quickly. What do you recommend under $200 with 4+ mic inputs and USB to computer? This is a temporary fix to a quickly approaching problem.
Go ahead, Carl.
So I think the Behringer, the 1202,
yeah.
it's rock solid. It has compression on each of them. All 4 channels have parity, so they're all the same. 109. Yep. It's available everywhere. You can walk into any store and pick it up.
Yeah, that's probably, in my opinion, that's probably the best one. Unless someone else had another suggestion, I don't know how many of those I've owned in the early days. Next question. Oh, go ahead, Jeffrey.
I was just going to add the Alesis Multi-Mix. It's been around forever. They have USB. They did have Firewire at one time. I don't think you can get that, of course. But I've used that in many different situations, from streaming to recording to in live band work.
Next question.
Leo Bindell in Pinner, UK. Is there a way for participants when they register for a Zoom call to choose a breakout room when they sign up?
No, there's no way to deep connect that right now. Jonas?
Only way you could do it is add a specifics field to it and then use either pre-registration as upload a CSV or use Zoom OSC to move them to a breakout room. Yeah. It could work.
I mean, Obvio does a lot of different things that will let you customize how they enter those breakout rooms that it's doing with, but there's no built-in way to do that. Next question.
Mark Giuliani in Alexandria, Virginia. Which is a better route for audio when using a Heil PR-40, through the ATEM Mine Pro or through a MOTU M2 and then into the computer?
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
So with the PR-40, it needs a lot of gain as far as the mic preamp. So the M2 is not so bad. Anything else that's kind of got a good gain, like 60 dB of gain, you can use a cloud lifter. But yeah, not directly into the ATEM is
we'd avoid Heil PR-40 into the ATEM Mini would probably be a source of a lot of upset. Next question.
Greg Gibson in Washington, D.C. Doug Ferguson needs to tell us all the details of his recent work streaming the NCAA Division II Track and Field Championships.
Did we talk about that yesterday or Monday? I think we did. We did talk about that on either yesterday.
It was Monday.
Yeah, so go back there, and there was a deep dive. It was great. Next question.
Tobias Moss in Minneapolis, 1080p videos posted to Facebook don't always show at their full resolution. What are best practices to avoid the inconsistency and ensure full quality? And if there's time for it, same, etc. Our question would be 4K.
I don't know why, if you upload it at 1080p, I don't know why it wouldn't display it. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I think some people don't have this. Some people have the feature and some people don't have the feature. A lot of
Okay.
videos are still 720p.
And I'm talking, you're talking about the videos themselves, not a stream, because streams are all 720p. I mean, unless you have a specific account, but most streams are all 720p. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because of the question, the use case, but there is a really weird thing with Facebook. If you premiere a video, it uses the streaming system to first premiere it. And so it's all 720 and then afterwards becomes available at the higher resolution.
Yeah. Next question.
Charles Silverman in Richfield, Connecticut. Let me actually click done answer. Using a Zoom room and the cloud record will only record at 720p. Group HD in the settings is missing the 720/1080 toggle buttons. What am I missing?
Nothing. I don't think that the cloud recording will ever record over 720p. I think that I think you can record 1080 in local. Go ahead, Andy.
So we found that if you have a monitor, like I have some engineers at Firefox that have 4K monitors, it will actually record in UHD.
Well, it records at UHD, but it doesn't. The video transport is not actually UHD. So,
Correct.
So you're getting the screens that you put up will be 4K. But your video transport is either 360 with a regular account, 720 if you have a Zoom room, jump into it, or you have a business account, or 1080 if you get the magic Zoom dust sprinkled over top. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Rupert McRae, and he says, is anyone familiar with the website Virtual Event News? They have a specific section for physical event cancellation news, and among those events is Comic-Con 2021. Any knowledge of any other high-profile physical events still being canceled? And he has a note here for the link, and he has another note that says, there is also an entire Wikipedia page for events affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and he has a link to that as well.
I didn't know that Comic-Con got. It sounded like they were going to go through with it this summer, but it sounds like I guess they backed away. That's an interesting development. The interesting thing will be to see what happens in the fall, because we're not sure how COVID will go in the fall. So, and that doesn't include the fact that there was a case of H2N3 in China this week. Next question.
It looks like we're starting to run low on questions. Do we want to unlock them?
We're gonna jump into the second hour early. So I locked them because we're gonna get to the bottom of the hour, and then we're gonna switch over because we have to leave at 8:15. We're having a short show today. So
gotcha.
Let's jump into the next question.
Okay, Rupert McRae again in Dallas, Texas. Any thoughts on YouTube Creator Academy or the YouTube Creator Services Directory? And he has notes for the links of both those.
I think that YouTube has done a fairly good job of building some of the videos that they have out there. I haven't gone through the academy. We went through I've been through a variety of YouTube training, at YouTube, for a handful of partners. They usually have folks who do a lot of streaming. There's something else there. So, but I haven't actually seen the online one. I guess no one else has experienced it. So yeah, but the videos are good that they've built. Go ahead, Jonas.
When I started with YouTube 5 years ago, they were already there, and I keep looking at them because there is some good basic information about lighting and how do you engage with your audience. So if you just want to start out and need some help, that's a first good point.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I went through a lot of this early on and trying to get my YouTube channel up and really dialed in. And I think they've also started something where they closed all the campuses, but they're doing some sort of on the road type thing.
Yeah.
So you can
they've done
still get in-person training.
Yeah, and they've done those tours for a decade now, as far as like going to different cities and making that work. So yeah, next question.
Next one's coming in from Chris Earl in Maitland, Florida. And he says, is there a benefit to stereo line out from my Clarett 8 pre-USB to the mic in of my ATEM and then using the ATEM audio in my Zoom call? Or should I just use the Clarett as the audio device in Zoom? And he has a note that says, I would be using Rogue Amoeba software to route mix audio to the Clarett, as well as my mic, any additional audio from various Mac applications.
Go ahead, Carl.
So if your Clarett has USB into the computer, that's the best option. Avoid the extra chain of going through the ATEM. That's just generally my opinion.
The ATEM is an amazing switcher. It's not an audio. It's not a real audio mixer. Go ahead, Beju.
Yeah, one point just that the advantage of getting the audio into the ATEM would be if you're using an ISO or something and you're recording the program out, so you want the reference audio in the, you want to record the audio as well with the video. Otherwise, yeah, the direct is best.
Next question.
Next one's coming in from JHB in New York, and he says, looking for recommendations for PTZ cameras. I will be doing a series of streaming events with multiple camera angles, not necessarily looking for the cheapest solution. Reliability and good color rendition are key. Thanks.
This is my kind of question. Not looking for the cheapest one. Go ahead, Carl.
So yeah, the Canon ones that are coming out now. So
I'm so excited about that $5,000.
So, yeah, the best bang for your buck is your $5,000 one there, which is a 1-inch sensor. The one for 2.3 is better. It has more of a handy cam kind of size sensor, so 2.3/1. And then the outdoor camera. The outdoor camera is a mirror image of the $5,000 camera. Just outdoors.
The $5,000. I haven't tested it yet. I want to get it in and like put it up on charts and shoot some sample footage. So I don't know, but it feels like it. When you look at some of the images they posted as samples, it looks really good. And so, in a pretty small form factor. The ones that we've used the most are the ones that I've used the most as an all-in-one PTZ as a BRC 900 and the BRC 9000 or 1000, which is the Sony version. The 1000 is the 1-inch chip as well. It's twice as much as the Canon though, so it's a bit more expensive. The Panasonic 150s have an advantage that they do telemetry back for Unreal Engine, so they have some advantages there, and they're pretty high resolution. I think they're 4K as well, 1-inch sensor. So those are all kind of table stakes there. The one that I've used the most is a Blackmagic Mini Ursa with a Cabrillo lens on a telemetrics head. So when you say I'm not looking for necessarily the cheapest, that's not the cheapest. That's going to run you in the ballpark of $25,000 a unit, for everything all in one piece. But it is actually more like $30,000 a unit. But they're great, and so they work fantastically. But those are the different ranges from relatively inexpensive at $5,000 up to I don't find a lot of the PTZs under $5,000 to be worth buying, in my opinion. So especially if you're looking for color rendition. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand. One of the YouTube channels I subscribe to is Spectre Sound Studios, and he's got the URL in the notes. And he finally got an ATEM earlier this year. He uses a foot switch to change camera angles, which is fine when he's playing guitar, demoing, mixing, but you can hear it when he's not. Suggestions for something quieter.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
So there are some foot switches that are quieter. It sounds like he's using a latch switch, so latch on, latch off. He can use a soft switch for that. There are soft switches out there. I think a few of the panelists have shown him in the past.
Yeah, go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, the soft step actually is what I use, and it's actually sitting right there amidst all my wires. But it's an incredible one from Keith McMillan. No sound whatsoever. Period. End of story.
That's great.
Also, you should see this just before I go. If you are into using continuous controllers, you can see that this will actually see the numbers move on that. So instead of an accelerator pedal to send numbers, you can just step down, up, across, anything to generate those numbers.
That's great. Next question. Oh, go ahead, Jeffrey, real quick.
So just so you know, this is the latch one. This is a company called Stomp. The latch buttons are this little dirty. Sorry about that. But I also use the IK Multimedia. They have the blue turn, and then they have a 4-button stomp that's meant more for changing pedals and things like that. So that's more programmable, where this is more just of a page turner type device.
And I think we have one more question. It has a lot of negative votes only because we've answered it so many times, but I'm still going to answer it because it's really cool.
Okay, JHB in New York says, Alex, can you please describe your telestrator setup?
I'm definitely going to make a movie of this soon because it's just like it was once a week. Hasmukh, we'll talk about that. So what I have here is a telestrator or a Wacom tablet. This is a Wacom. You can use a Wacom one. I'm using the older one, but it's a Cintiq, so I've got video in front of me. The way mine works is that you have the ATEM and you have the Mac Mini. What happens is the Wacom tablet has a USB or HDMI that has to go into it, right? And a USB that goes out of it to tell the computer where the stylus is. We run the USB into the Mac Mini. We run the Mac Mini HDMI into the ATEM, and then we run the ATEM's program. I'm using an ISO, so Extreme, so I have a second program into the Wacom tablet here. So, or here. So that way the Wacom tablet's seeing my program, and the Mini's output, and the Mini is just it's a white screen with, I'm just drawing a black on a white screen. Then I'm using this as a DSK, a downstream key. I'm keying what comes out of the Mac Mini, and I am filling it with a color. Now, there's other people here who've done green screen, and you can see that Ken has colors because he's doing green screen, and you can do that as well and select those colors. I find that it's hard. The way I use my telestrator is because I'm talking to people while I'm doing it. I don't want to look down and think about what color. So the reason I don't give myself colors is so that I don't start looking for a marker. I just want to, like, I'm drawing on this and talking and interacting with them. And so I'm trying to remove, I'm always, as a presenter, trying to reduce the number of things I'm thinking about other than just being present. And so a lot of this is, the reason that I use a Wacom tablet instead of just an iPad or something else is because of that. So anyway, that's how it's built. We'll get one in there. The app that I'm using to do this is my own. We are going to publish it. I'm just looking for a Swift developer. If anyone out there wants to work with me, I have it written. It needs to be cleaned up. It crashes a couple times if I'm not careful. So it was written years ago. So all right. So that's it for our Q&A. We're running a little short today, and thank you for that. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump into what we're going to do is we're going to switch over again. And I guess the question for Nate, and Nate, you can text me or talk about it here, but go ahead and let me know how many people. We'll pick a couple people to jump into the other system as we make the transition.
Full 6.
Full 6?
With
okay.
Guy.
Sorry?
6 and Guy.
6 and Guy. Okay, great. So what we're going to do is we will send. Hold on, let me write this down because we have to get this, by the way, better. We'll identify folks tomorrow. We're going to identify them ahead of time so that we're not making this up as we go. But so what we're going to do here is we're getting ready for this kind of transition process that we're working on here. So we will grab Guy. I'm trying to go as a multi-country as possible. So Guy, Ken, Carl. Let's see. Todd, I'm going to pull you in. And let's see here. Chris, are you able to jump into the second one? We'll send you are you on Discord, Chris?
Me?
Yeah.
I actually have a work call in like 20 minutes anyway. So
then never mind. You're not you. Richard, you're on Discord. And let's see. Jonas, we had to, we'll grab you. Hold on, if you're up for it.
I'm probably heading out in half an hour. If that's
all we got.
Yeah, then it's fun.
So, and then we need, let's see, and Hasmukh, we're going to grab you again because we have, that way we can cover. Part of the reason I'm doing that is so that I can, so that we can test latency, across it. It's hard, it's the most number of miles that I can grab onto. So what I'm going to do for everyone is I'm going to send you the, hopefully someone sends me the actual link. But I will, once I have the number there, I will text this all to you, or not text it, but Discord. So if you guys open your Discord, I'll send it all to you right now. And then just jump into those, and it'll just take us a second to make this conversion. So let's see here. Oh, there we go. I have it. So let me, probably could have just had somebody else do this, but we'll do it anyway. Let's see here. So just when you get this, when you get the ID, just go ahead and drop out. And
Sky's host. So you want to make me host?
Did I say Sky? I don't think I have. I don't think I have Sky jumping right now, unless.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, it's all good. Again, we're trying to cover as many countries as possible here. Let's see, Carl. And everyone's going to get a chance to do this because we're going to be testing this quite a bit. So,
because we are staying in this.
yep, everyone
panel
here
as well,
stays
right?
here. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the. And again, tomorrow what we're going to do is we'll pick this out before the hour starts, and we will make sure that everyone's kind of ready for the transition. So we've been kind of figuring out this process organically. You can try to write it all out, but you end up with a whole lot of meetings, and sometimes it's just easier to to do it and just figure out the process as we go of what needs to be done. I'm a firm believer in agile development. So there we go. Oh, it's the same one as yesterday. So there we go. Okay, so we're going to drop out. Nate is going to, as we drop out, Nate will push, if you're watching the live stream, what you're probably going to see here is a countdown clock as we start to work on this. So Nate will push the countdown clock out, and we'll all join our sections, and hopefully within 3 minutes, we'll all be ready to go. So you guys can talk amongst yourselves until we come back and become part of this. So stay tuned. All right. In the show, and we're now it's what I will notice is, and hopefully you guys can see this. I will notice that it's odd for me as the host to not see the group. So that'll be interesting for me to figure out as far as how that works. So like the return of just me is more difficult. So that's something we're observing right now. So we're here with a group of other people that we're going to talk to. So hopefully we'll bring those folks up. And so now we're missing Hasmukh and see, and is Guy here? Oh, there's a sort of still coming up there, Richard, and then Hasmukh.
Station.
There we go. And then we're just routing a couple routing things here. And then one of the things we can think about also, Nate, is that, because we're not doing a, kind of mad in the kitchen, people following along, we're not constrained by 16 by 9. So, we can tell, for instance, Jonas to center up and then kind of, just as we do the design, we don't have to make it, 16 by 9s. So it's just something to think about there as we kind of build that out. And then we just have to train our host even to center up. So that's I think that's one piece of it there. I'd love to put, when we can, put borders around the, I'd like to make the background darker. I don't need to have a second hour. I think I'd rather have it just be office hours rather than second hour in the upper area there. And then I'd like to make the background darker, but give light edges, images without a border over top of something make me crazy. So, but if we can put like a little light border, I think that's something that's available inside the super source and the DVE. I want it like 2 pixels, just something really subtle to kind of separate them out there. And I'd make them just a slightly lighter than the background of whatever that is, just to give them a little separation there. But we can talk through the design there. We're still getting 2 of Richard. So are we having an issue with the routing there?
Hasmukh said he's in the meeting. Oh, he's back.
Oh, Hasmukh's in a meeting. Did I just... Is Hasmukh? Okay. Okay, great. And Hasmukh's got a little black on one side. Is that us or him? Is that in his raw video feed, or is that us doing something that is giving him a black edge? Okay. Yep. Yeah. No, it looks like it's in the video there. So Hasmukh, you've got a little bit of a. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You got a little bit of a black over your left shoulder, like a little edge. I don't know if you can see that or not. There we go. Yeah. So, and then, now I got to wait. There we go. Just barely. And you guys can hear me okay? Nod if you can hear me, everything's coming through okay. Go ahead and Ken, let me see how that works for you.
How what works?
Can you,
I can hear you. Just speak.
Okay.
Okay. No, I heard you fine.
Yeah, great. And Carl, you can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, it seems like the delay works pretty well. Jonas,
yeah,
can you hear?
I can hear you.
Yeah, so that it feels pretty comfortable. Todd? Nope, can't hear you. Either you're muted or we're muted or someone's muted.
Sorry. Now you can hear me, yes?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, and then there's Guy. Now, if we do a 6-up, how does Guy pop in for that Q&A? Is it, do we go to a 2-up? Right. And that key is pretty, as we work on that, that's pretty adjustable. Like if you don't want don't want soft edges and colors and everything else, there's a lot of adjustment in that key. So, and I can adjust it from here if we need to. So once you get it going, if there's something you're missing, I'm really fast at it. Yeah. So we've got a single, or right now we're single on Guy. Yeah, are you able to? Yeah, and then what are we thinking up there, as far as that goes? Oh, okay, that's a DVE, I assume. So there's our group up, and then do we have 2-ups, 3-ups, 4-ups? Are we able to kind of reorganize this, or are we always in a 6-up, 6 plus me? Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, and I think that I'd like to have a version of this with 6UP that I'm not bigger than everyone else, because I think that, like, when we look at Dub, I'll be one of the panel. Like, I mean, I'll be asking questions and being part of that, but because with office hours we have a Q&A, but with this, most likely we'll have, I'll probably end up asking those questions for Dub. So we just want to think about how that, like a 6UP just by itself is probably good. And we probably need to be ready in case. The thing that might get us is that we have a lot of people coming in that have various scheduling issues. Anyway, yeah. So sorry, I just got a text from. We tomorrow might get more stressful. We'll see. We'll see what we're ready for. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, so I think that we want to be ready in case we only have 5 people or 4 people or 6 people. Like we have to have somewhere in there. And again, I would do that inside. I don't know if you're using MixFX Pro or not, Nate. I don't think you can do what we need to do without it, to be honest. Like, I don't think you can program that. I don't think you can build the board to do it without MixFX Pro. Like, I don't like to do as many looks as we want will be really cumbersome. Maybe you can, but the macros will be really cumbersome. So we might want to think about looking at it through the VPN. You should be able to just. I mean, do you have an iPad, Nate? I don't know if you do or not. You can. If you can give it a wired connection into the same switch and then give it then you could give it, if you're going into a switch there, you can, it'll be able to see the switcher. So you can affect it, from wherever, but I would probably take a look at that. Otherwise, I think that the builds will take forever, to get this to work. It's pretty fast as far as building those out. And they animate. So when you transitions, it's pretty cool. Let's see here. And by the way, I opened up the Q&A again. Let's see here. So if you guys want to, if anyone wants to have any comments or questions of things that they see there, that we can pop them up, we can play with it there. Yeah, I saw Matt saying that you could do this in vMix. Yeah, there's a lot of other things though that we need to do that vMix can't. so for super sources you can do it in your sleep, but I'd like to see vMix do 4K HDR with immersive sound. Is where we're going. So you have to kind of look at where you're going to end up, not where you are when you get started. So things go from being easy to hard. So we've got that's I mean, again, the hardware gives us a bunch of options that we can't do with. We're trying to play at a bigger game than what we can do really on software at the moment. But eventually we know that it'll all go in the cloud, but we just not yet. So go ahead. We'll play with this a little bit. Go ahead, Guy. Why don't you go ahead and pop the next question out?
Next question is from Douglas Carmichael, and he says, I've heard of live music events being broadcast into movie theaters. Since movie theaters are 5.1 plus mediums, wouldn't mixing live music in 5.1 be a lot harder than the usual left-right front-of-house mix? I know most live sound consoles can't mix in 5.1.
Yeah, so you do. There's a lot of there are consoles that can do it. So you can definitely do that in the Yamaha mixers, and even in the X32s, there are some options there. One of the things you have to look at is for a lot of these stage acts, if they're just going to riff, it's very hard to put it into immersive sound. But if they're going to use a click track for the songs or specific songs, you can start to really extend it because you have time.
Digital
because now you know where people will be when. Sorry, go ahead, Jonas. Jonas, did you talk or was that somebody else?
I was asking. Nate told me I should raise my hand, and I was asking if it is the physical or digital hand.
Right. Well, one of the problems there is that I can't see Jonas when I'm talking. So that's something we have to think about. So if he raises his hand. Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, for this type of show, most likely what'll happen is that I think that what we ought to look at is how to route. I think I need the super source routed to me, not the program, like, or something, because I need, at least as the host, I need to see everybody all the time, because I don't, it'll be too disruptive to be told what I'm doing while I'm doing it, because I'll be talking. So I think that, and normally on a show, I don't want to have, like on the second hour, I don't necessarily need or want people to raise their hand. I want to have it be, right now we do, but in general, what we want to do is I'll be throwing questions at people. Todd, what do you think? Go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to comment, first of all, that I was going to try to comment on the 5.1 thing, but then of course, Nate did talk to us so that he could let us know how we should proceed. And of course, that also dims your voice. So then when your voice goes away, and now I also can't see you, but when your voice goes away, then it gets confusing for me, because I'm sure you're saying something important that I need to hear before I answer a question. So that might.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think that we either need to go back to the splits, or we need to the return. Just we need a different output from the constellation. The return probably needs to be the multi view or some other multi view. But I got to be able to see everybody I'm talking to. Like I don't think this show doesn't work without it. So it's a little different than broadcast, I think. So we'll have to figure that out. We can rewire that for the next one. So yeah. So I think that would be, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah. So if I was a developer coming on and I wanted to share screen, how would that affect?
So when you share screen to a room, so when you're in a meeting with a room, we just get it as two feeds. So if you hit share screen, I just get it as a separate feed, and then so we would just cut to it as needed. In fact, I don't know, Nate, if you have a build for that, where there's a screen from, or there potentially. Yeah, no worries. So that would be one of the things that we would do there. Yeah. Let's jump to the next question.
Next one's coming in from Christian Ortiz in South Florida. Can you do full 9-up grid with speaker always upper left option?
I think that we would be able to do that with Zoom ISO. We'll not be able to do that with what we have right now. So that's coming. Yeah, definitely doing a grid is possible with any of those things, but we would need to have, we're not ready for it yet. This will be a little bit more methodical at the moment. Next question.
Next one's coming in from George Kennedy Jr. in Washington, D.C. I love the clean look, dark and gradient.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that if we get some borders around them, it'll separate them out a little bit. I think I'd again probably go a little darker and probably just put the OH logo up there rather than the second hour. I think is all we need to do there. I think that we can simplify that a little bit, but I think that we're definitely on our way. Next, I like things to be considerably darker than what we have in the foreground. So I do find it interesting though that again our blacks are much different. We should definitely look at whether we're doing any kind of gamma to the thing, because I did notice looking at YouTube that the blacks are all higher in this output. And so I'm just wondering if somewhere we're doing some kind of transform in our office, because this is definitely the blacks are a lot higher for us than everyone else, or definitely for me at least. And I think a little bit for Ken. Go ahead, Carl.
So when we're in here presenting full screen, is it best that we have a black background to what we're presenting full screen, or a white background?
Definitely not white. Like what I'd love to do is for us to, we can show white if we have to, but what we want to do is keep on going towards darker backgrounds for things. It's just nicer to watch. It's nicer to watch. You have to think about it watching it on a TV, because we're really moving towards the ability. We want to make sure that people can we want to make sure that people can watch it on their Apple TV comfortably, in that process. And white is really garish when you watch it on Apple TV. Next question.
Next one's from John Barker in Malmö, Sweden. What happens in the future when we have locked into this format, but 090 needs to use the equipment for other work?
I have some of the equipment already in place, yeah, that we're already talking. We've been talking about that for a couple of weeks. So we have a conflict today. That's why we're ending early, because we're starting to use the whole system here. Part of it is that we don't, for some reason, O90 doesn't have very many things that happen early in the morning. So most of our stuff is later. So we've been able to get away with it, and just happened to be this one conflict here today. The goal, though, is that we're going to build up capacity to do it separately. So it may not be quite as robust on some days, but I think that we're going to see what we can do as far as people providing, like we've got some companies that have already provided us some hardware that we can use. And then we'll probably put out a hat, see who wants to help us build the master control, for that. So, we do need to, by the end of the summer, my goal is to be able to separate it, so that what we're using for our morning sessions is not O90 resources. It's still going to be in the same space, but we need to make sure that we can do that. The other reason is that we're going to be giving all of you access to lots of hardware. So a lot of people, anyone who wants to learn how to do this, will be getting access to this stuff. And so then we have to figure out how to make sure that it's comfortable and you're not accidentally bumping things while we're doing shows. Yeah, go ahead, Guy. Or did you say Guy had a comment? Or
This is George, real quick. Alex,
George.
can we take a look at the lower third?
Go ahead, George.
Because the edges look a little bit, it's not aliasing, but I don't know if it's the return from what's in Zoom, but the edges just look a little bit like it's aliasing a little bit.
In which edges?
I don't know.
The edges of me or the edges of the screen, or what edges?
The lower thirds. Lower thirds. That's up right now, guys.
The key might be a little too hard.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to let you see that before keep on going.
And are those being saved out as pings? Do we know if those are out as pings or TGAs? Do we know that? Yeah, that's why. so we have to export those as TGAs. You can't export them as pings yet. And you can send them out as pings out of whatever you're doing them in, but you have to then put them into Affinity Photo and export them out as TGAs. You always have edge problems with pings when you export them. For some reason, the way that it's exported via is that pre-multiplied on the lower thirds, or is it? Are you keen? Yeah, it's something weird. Yeah, the pings, direct exports of pings never have worked for me. Some people say that they work, but anytime you do anything other than a square hard edge, you'll see aliasing. So you need to use TGAs. Next question. Or I can't see again. I can't see people raising their hands. So that's the problem. I gotta figure that out. Carl, were you going to add something there? I thought I saw you with it. Yeah. So yeah, the feedback loop is part of the problem. So now we have, yeah. No, but I'm saying, and then that's good that I was able to see George. So when George had that question.
So how is, okay, now I guess I'm coming in. George and now Sky coming in from that Zoom room. I assume Nate is bringing us in from that room. We are a separate room. Copy that.
Yeah, I can see you now. So now you're programmed.
Yeah, and I saw the shift in color shift too. I don't know when and how that's happening. I'm not changing anything, but all of a sudden I just got a dark, crusty, like I normally look. Sorry, and then I went faded.
Yeah. So we got to figure out what's going on there. I think that I do believe that there's there is an FS that is not set correctly. So we have to take a look at that and see what.
I keep doing all my hand gestures, and I guess you're not seeing them.
Kevin, yeah, that's the problem. Is that again, this isn't working in the sense that I don't have feedback in this kind of show. This is what we're trying to figure out. Is in this kind of show, I got to be able to see it. Maybe it's me being able to open up. It might be that I need to open up another window. Like I need to join two things so that I can see the actual. I can be in it as a participant to see things as well, and be able to call it out. That might be part of the challenge there. Kevin, if you're watching there in the FSHDRs, make sure to go in and turn off all color correction, just to make sure if we see those pop. Just make sure that none of them have color correction on. Go ahead, Carl.
So as you said before with the multi-view, so maybe the people on this side that are in the actual panel for the second hour, we may be okay looking at a multi-view, understanding that. It's going to be a little bit harder for us to see, I guess, the rest. So the actual Zoom webinar side.
And I don't think that's as important, if you're a guest in the second hour, I think that that's not as I don't think that's as critical, because I'm going to be calling, asking you questions and so on and so forth. So
You
I
could
think
do a
seeing
10
that.
up. You could do a 10 up with two large up top, which one could be the multi-view from the webinar. The other one could be you as host, and then the 8 down the bottom could be the guests.
Yeah, that might be possible. And you could possibly just do that as a multi-view from, like one of the multi-view outputs.
That's what we see. Us 6 here, or us 7 here would see that permanently.
Yeah, that actually could work really well. So just use one of the, maybe another ME, and use one of its multi-views as set up another ME with a multi-view out that has just that. So that might be something we could do, because there's 4 multi-views out of the constellation. So you could have 2 big ones and 8 small ones relatively easily. So yeah, that's a good idea. So that's a good way to design it. So we'll just play with that.
A small graphical thing, but in the view of the 6 people in the grid, the vertical to me feels like it should be the same width as the horizontal.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think we've lined that up yet, but yeah, absolutely. So they need to be the same. So, and all we have to do is pull them. We can either tug them a little closer vertically, or we can, again, make them wider. But yeah, and also without the lines, it feels a little schlocky. It just has to have, they just have to have borders. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Roscoe Jones, and he says, Hasmukh's gray background matches the switcher, so he appears to be floating. Does this effect need to be fixed? And he's talking about in the 6.
It's kind of cool. But I think that we won't have that effect, because we'll have a white edge. That's part of why you want the white edge, or not the white edge, but the light gray or dark gray edge, medium gray edge, whatever, that separates us out. That way there's no blending. There could be an argument that we could have really, slightly cool colors for each person, but I still like seeing people's locations. So, but I think the edge will fix that, in that process. By the way, also for Kevin, I realized that if we actually do just crop people a little bit, we won't need to scale them up. If we just crop, I guess you'd see it. You still need to cut. Yeah, you still need to pick it up a little bit there. Yeah. And we have to be careful of talking. I guess we have to do instructions. I just heard, I think, Guy nodding his head or talking back to Nate. This is the part where we have to kind of figure out if Nate's talking to someone, we have to make sure we're potting them down or something, so they can't respond to Nate on mic. So we have to kind of figure that out too. Next question. And someone's going to have to, Nate, you will have to cue me at this point if someone raises their hand, because again, it's very disconcerting for me not to be able to see the rest of the panel. So that's the part that I can't quite figure out. Yeah. So I need to see that. I need to figure that out. Yeah. That's something we have to figure out. Next question.
Jonas Dottel in Reutlingen, Germany says, is it possible to give guests the prompter view so I could see the questions there?
Yeah, I think that we just have to figure out what we want to send as returns, and so possibly one of those windows is a return, is the questions, if they're large enough for them, that we just have questions in there. And again, we can also use the other switcher as what we had talked about is using another switcher as we have 2 super sources there. So theoretically we could build whatever we want it to look like, like we could have the other switcher just build a return. It doesn't have to be like a set return, but it could have us, our program at big, the whole panel big, the individuals, and then also a cutout of the teleprompter view. So that might be another thing for us to do. I think that might be a workable thing to send as a return. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Roman Kirek in Kiev, Ukraine. What is the best platform to build your own video on demand service?
There's a lot of cost to it. I know a lot of people have used a lot of different things. I think that one of the more popular ones is Vimeo. And this is, again, where I don't know whether the panel is raising their hand or anyone else, because the sending back program return is a disaster for me. This is the first time we've done that, or I've done it, because we've always sent some raw 4 up or 16 up, and I think we decided to try this because that's what I get with. That's what I've gotten for Mac Break. But go ahead, George.
As Alex mentioned, Vimeo, but if you want to experiment, try out AWS. media package. That's a good place if you want to do a little bit of experimentation.
Next question.
Another one in from Roman, and he asks, what is the full list of changes for Office Hours 2?
It's going to be a kind of a work in progress. So, we're still kind of figuring this out. You know, what we know is that, I mean, I really feel like there's an opportunity to kind of push the outer edge of what a show is, but we're already running into why you don't do this, you know, and we'll do it. I mean, we'll figure it out because that's what we're going to do. But the figuring out how do we create that? So how do we have the second hour feel more like a show, and eventually the first hour, how do we interactively cut between, you know, 30 panelists? How do we take those questions in powerfully and meaningfully? How do we interact with the audience? Those are all things that are on the list of things to do. And then figuring out the audio pipelines, the comm pipelines, the video pipelines. I mean, right now we're probably on the path to probably the most complex. We're definitely on our way to the most complex show I think ever done. Maybe not ever, but it's going to get pretty high up by fall because we're going to be doing a lot of things all at one time. So so there's not a hard list. It's mostly us figuring it out, and we're just going to keep figuring it out. Next question. Yeah, go ahead, Jonas. Again, I can't see him.
Do you think there will be an interactive like overlay? So when I, for example, look at my return feed, it would say Nate is speaking to you, or you're coming up next, or some information like a tally light or something.
I definitely think that we could get to the point where we're sending notes. I mean, what I'd like to do is design that return. Like right now, we're just kind of, the reason we have all those PCs, those expensive PCs, was I was planning to do it with vMix. Then after testing the vMix call, I decided it wasn't ready for prime time at the time we bought the computers. So it wasn't ready for what we needed to do. So that's why we're doing Zoom with them. But I think that the goal was to be able to eventually customize the return to each person so that it's exactly what we want to send them. Right now, I think we may do just one return for everybody, but it'll have more information, and we'll probably work on that today for tomorrow. Next question.
Eric Price in Leavenworth, Kansas says, I noticed that the sync in the YouTube stream within Mukana is off by about a half second. When I went to YouTube itself, the sync seemed fine. Why might this be? And he has a note that says, now the sync in the Mukana YouTube stream seems much better. How did you fix that?
I don't think we fixed it. I think that you refresh the page. Sometimes it can slide off a little bit, and then when you refresh the page, it solves itself. Next question.
Sorry, I got a guest that just walked in.
Oh, good.
JJ McKenna, it's all right. Can Alex see people raising their hands in the non-program group?
No, that's the issue. I can't see that right now. So that's what we're trying to solve here is that I'm going to have to see that, and so we'll have to figure that out. And again, in the WWC one, in many of the second hours, it won't be as much participation from that panel, but we still want to be able to do that. Go ahead, Sky. I can see you now.
And we're seeing a lot of very compressed. It's like fourth generation by the time we see it back onto the Zoom room. It's not crisp at all.
It is. Well,
like
I mean,
compression of a compression of a compression.
There shouldn't be any reason for that. So we'll have to look at that. The of yourselves or of us? I mean, are we not
of ourselves? When Nate feeds in the Zoom room, we're seeing whatever Nate is showing us, and now I'm seeing myself. But when I saw the full,
I mean, you have to remember that. I mean, again, we're going to be more worried about how it. I mean, in that when we're doing the Q&A, when the panel is very active, it's still going to be from the panel. For the foreseeable future. And one thing that I do find interesting is looking at, Nate, when you cut to that panel again, if you cut to the panel, so there's definitely something either in the switcher or in how it's being fed that we're seeing the black levels go up. So there's something in the system that we need to address. So anyway, so that's something to, hold on a second. I've got to get out of this. Anyway, so, yeah, so I think that what you're thinking of is looking compressed is that black level shift, which we got to figure out where that's occurring. But it's obviously not occurring at the encoder because it's in the return. So we have to look at where that is. Let's jump to the next one.
Next one's coming in from Leo Mendel in Pinner UK. I wonder why the panel, including Alex, needs to be seeing the program out. Could they not just stay in Zoom as normal and the switching done externally?
Yeah, so as we look at doing an actual panel, one of the things that we're going to do is we want to be able to isolate audio. Like that's a big deal for us. And so we can't do what we're trying to do with shared audio. And so until Zoom allows us to have ISO feeds of the audio, we're kind of stuck in a situation where we have to be people on separate. The other thing to remember is that as we go into the second hours, eventually what's going to happen is I need to be able to, like what we want to be able to do is we're having the first hour, we're doing everything we want. At the same time, the second hour is being prepared. So people are coming into Zoom rooms, they're getting ready to go. You know, we're not doing this thing where they kind of uncomfortably show up 15 minutes before the second hour and kind of randomly walk in while we're talking. They're back there, we're prepping them, we're getting them ready to go, and then we're dropping them into the system. So that's that's kind of the plan, for that, which is why we're kind of taking this path. It'll feel much more like a show because we're basically building another studio room for them to drop into more effectively. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Jeffrey Powers, and he says, "Can we try to sing Happy Birthday for the full latency?"
I'm not going to try to do it. We'll test that later, but not today. I can't. I'm just having trouble keeping up with what we're doing at the moment. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Mark Giuliani, and he says, "Can the questions be screen scraped from Mukana and placed under Alex or the second hour speaker?"
We have that lower third. I don't know if we don't have that working yet. Is that the deal, Nate? We just don't have it keyed. Oh, that's not it. It should be okay. Yeah, we have it. Yeah. We don't need to screen scrape it. We actually have a whole page that's generated that's driven from Mukana for lower thirds. And so it's just a matter of figuring out where we want it. It's movable and all the other stuff. So it's all tied in. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Bill Alexi in Fort Worth, Texas. And he says, "Is Mimo Live employed at all in this workflow? I've noticed a large gamma gain when using Mimo Live, especially when using virtual cameras." He has a note here that says, "I have a suspicion something is happening on the Mac OS level."
Well, there's not really that many Macs in the system right now, so it's unlikely. These are all PCs doing this stuff, and we haven't seen this problem until recently, so we're trying to figure that out. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Gilberto in Santa Cruz, Bolivia. "Any experience in pricing using AWS for streaming small events, 300 people for 2 hours?"
Yeah, it's hard to do the math that quickly on what that is, but if someone's going to ask me to bid on 300 people for 2 hours, I'd probably say it's about $400 on bandwidth at 1080, maybe $400, $800, somewhere in that range to do it. But I don't know for sure. There's a calculator somewhere in Media Live that'll tell you that. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Douglas Carmichael, and he asks, "Last year, Digico made a series of deep dive videos entitled Locked Up with a Digico, with well-known live sound engineers showcasing how they use their consoles. In some of them, they had their console set up in their homes or even apartments." And he has a note here that says, "Wouldn't most pro rental companies not let their equipment out without certificates of insurance and them delivering to from?" He says, "I can't imagine delivering a large console to from an apartment block. Probably an expensive delivery charge. Also, I've heard those insurance policies aren't cheap."
It depends. We usually have just a blanket insurance for all of it. I don't know how much, millions of dollars of loss and everything else. You pay it every month and use it for everything. And so, I mean, it wouldn't be an individual renting that. It'd be the company. And usually most rental companies will work with you as long as you have insurance. Next question.
Last one here. Juan C. Robles in Mexico says, "Can you send a second screen, meaning Mukana view, to send return info to panelists?"
Yeah. So we have a couple different views that are available, and we just need to work out how to send them and where to put them, possibly into this return or elsewhere. So anyway, so that's our little test for today. We've definitely learned some new things. We got to figure out a more complex return. We want to change the design on the second hour design. I don't really need second hour to be designed; just needs to be office hour, the office hour logo, which is in Mukana, or in Discord, but I can send it out. Darker, white lines around the folks, designs for the multiple ups that we need, the multiple super sources, probably figuring out the Mix Effects Pro. I think those are some of the lists of things, but the audio is working. We can hear everybody. Can you guys, someone say something in the panel? Like, so we hear you, like the two-way.
Yeah. We're testing from the panel coming in.
And hello from Monterey, California.
Yeah.
One thing about the panel is we saw the mouse movements when it went to gallery view, just so you know.
Okay, we have to figure out why that happened. I'm not sure exactly why we're seeing mouse views. You see it all the time, or you saw it just once?
No. When somebody's switching over from gallery to a specific presenter view with the mouse, we saw the mouse move up to it and click down.
Yeah,
and
we
I
got to
saw
stop doing that.
the panelist view come up.
Yeah, so we have to figure that out. That should
Mickey
be a keystroke.
specifically requested that we only use speaker view. So I have not touched, as the host, I have not touched the speaker or gallery view option. This has only been speaker view.
No, I'm sure it's on our end. We have to figure out, we have to keystroke that rather than using a mouse. So that'll be something for tomorrow, and then we'll get sorted out. If you, I guess in RFI or whatever, I don't know exactly where to put this. Maybe Chad can put something up somewhere that it makes more sense that as we do this, we're probably going to just call it Office Hours 2.0 and just have somewhere in some category so people can just discuss what they're noticing, because it'll be rough for a little while. I mean, the next day or two will be, tomorrow should be cleaner. We'll figure out the bits and pieces that we need to work on. And then hopefully it's good. I mean, it'll be good on Friday. We'll keep it pretty conservative on Friday because it's just me and one or two other people for the second hour. And the first hour seems to be working just fine. So it's just a matter of getting the start of the first hour off the ground, and then we'll be in a better space. Anyway, we have to, again, this is why we're going to eventually build up more gear on both ends, but because we have a conflict, we're going to have to drop out a little early. And so we'll play with making this better. But thanks for everyone for kind of following along here and playing with this. Let's go ahead and we'll keep on moving this down the pipe. Thanks to the panelists and all of our producers that are patient with us and seemingly interested as we seem to get a lot of people here hanging out and watching. So,
is
anyway,
Justine Ezrick still coming tomorrow or no? She's rescheduled.
Yeah, we're going to be we're working on that. So I got something recently. So yeah, so stand by for that. Anyway, I will. I think that we're just going to be doing more restructuring tomorrow. So that's the plan right now. There was a couple of changes in schedule. But we'll get back to you on that. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and fade to black, and then we're going to move on.
You have the con.